Hey everyone, in this video, Sam Harris's conception of evil gets debunked. This is part of my two-part reaction series to Jordan Peterson confronting Sam Harris on his morality, which is part of a larger discussion between the two men. So let's get right into it.
Evil is a category of human misbehavior, human intention, that we don't understand significantly at the level of the brain. But if we did understand it totally at the level of the brain, then every evil person we had in the dock at trial would be just like Charles Whitman with his brain tumor after he shot up everyone at the University of Texas, right? So like he's the prototypically evil mass murderer, but he's complaining about this change that overcame his personality, and he thinks it would be a good idea that if after the cops kill me, you autopsy my brain because I don't know why I'm doing any of this, right? And lo and behold, he had a glioblastoma pressing on his amygdala, and all of a sudden it made sense of his behavior in a way that a full understanding of psychopathy or every other variant of human evil would make sense of it in a way that would be deflationary ethically. And then you would look at, some...
I'm not sure if that's true, but even if it was true, even if there was a similar relationship between what we call, I don't know, run-of-the-mill evil in terms of like your compulsion to do that, as there is for like a tumor pressing against your amygdala, as he points out, even if that equivalence was fair, you run into kind of a broader problem, which is you kind of have to throw out free will altogether, which I think Harris is willing to do. But actually accepting that and actually living by that idea, or much less basing a society on it, is kind of a difficult ask, let's say. So I'm curious to see how Peterson responds to this.
Someone like Saddam Hussein, or the worst evil person you could imagine, and you would say, well, he's actually unlucky. There but for the grace of biology go I. Because if I had that brain, if I had those genes, if I had those influences that gave me those synapses, I would be just like him. Now, if you think there's some other element that gives us free will, and now then you and I are disagreeing, then that's a factual claim that's at variance with mine. But if we are just on some level malfunctioning biological systems when we're being evil, then a complete understanding of evil would cancel that category. Can you define evil?
So there is actually utility to what he's saying. I'm going to give the devil his due here. He is right that if you don't believe in free will, if you just believe in determined materials, one of my fellow co-hosts, Don, has talked about indeterminacy. I'm not going to pretend to understand that. I haven't looked into it enough. But he is right that if you do believe that sort of thing, then yeah, evil would go away. And then there's also a bit of accepting his claim halfway also has a bit of utility, because yeah, people are the product of their genetics and their circumstances, and even if you do believe there is free will, understanding that it could just as easily have been you does offer a bit of understanding and forgiveness for even the most evil of people, which is actually a deeply Judeo-Christian idea, interestingly enough. So that kind of attitude might be useful, a useful thing gleaned from this position.
Evil, so we know what you're talking about.
Well, take just the worst people who have sadistically victimized the most people, and those are the evilest people we can name.
Actually, that's a very insightful question by Douglas there. If I don't know who's actually decided. It might be Douglas Murray. It might be Brett. It might be Brett. I don't remember. But that's actually interesting, because here's the thing. Even if evil as done by humans, even if we understood it, he is still he just asked him, what do you mean by evil exactly then? If you believe that it can be deflated as a category with a little bit more scientific information, how do you even categorize it at all? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by worst type of human behavior? In the absence of the idea that some behavior is worse than anywhere else, this is kind of an expansion of the idea of evil just in terms of human behavior versus evil as a category of ethics overall. Harris is saying that understanding why human beings do evil things deflates its moral weight on an individual level, and that's kind of true. But you would have to find out whether, just because it deflates the amount of responsibility a human being has for doing an evil thing. But in order to have that, you still have to have this abstract concept of evil that the actions fall into, in that you then sever from the individual's responsibility eventually. So that's actually a very interesting, insightful question to ask Sam. It's a bit different. I think he can answer it, but I think it's a bit interesting and a little difficult.
So wait a second. So when you say, I think this is actually really
Okay, it
important.
is Brett
Something-
Weinstein.
Actual evil of that kind is pretty darn rare, and there's a lot of badness that emerges
Yeah, oh, yeah.
from a kind
Well, the
of
most troubling thing are
rationality.
all the good people doing evil because they're ruled by bad ideas. But that I think is more consequential than
We
actual evil
introduced
people.
we introduced a whole set of other things here in the last little round
Well,
about free will and evil. But
I just want to make it clear why I went there. So you were saying this is I forgot the word you used, inevitable or ineluctable or it's permanent. The implication is that this category is permanent, and I'm saying that I don't think
Okay, but hang
evil
on,
in that
hang-
sense is a permanent category.
No, but it is, though, because even if you understood why the psychopath is a psychopath, and the psychopath did a thing like shoot up a whole bunch of people, even if you knew it wasn't his fault, your first thought would be, oh, that was an evil action. That was an evil action. That was an evil thing. But whether or not you hold the individual responsible for that is kind of Harris's point. And I suppose that does deflate the intensity of evil a bit, but again, you're still separating the person's responsibility from something, and that something is evil. So it deflates it a little bit, but I don't think it's total.
It awaits more information and insight.
okay, we're going to distinguish for a minute good versus evil and good versus bad, just for the sake of conceptual clarity. In the moral landscape, you make a fundamental axiomatic claim. Looks like a moral claim. Maybe it's a claim of fact. And the claim is there are bad lives and good lives.
Sure.
And the claim you make is that
By the way, that's a faith-based presupposition, for the record. To categorize anything as a good or a bad life is an assumption. So off the bat, Harris's system does rely on on a priori assumptions, and I think you might agree with this. But just to point out to everybody, just for the record, is that there's no such thing as a moral system that's purely rational. At some point, you always have to make an assumption based on faith or for the purposes of practicality somewhere. Somewhere in any moral system, there will be something that you cannot justify logically, rationally, or scientifically. And that's true for everybody, including Sam Harris. So just so nobody's under any illusions about that. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that reaction video. If you did, drop a like and please consider subscribing to see more. If you didn't, tell me why. I want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. I want to have these conversations. If you want to see the rest of my content or explore the broader Pangburn universe that I'm a part of, click one of the buttons that should be floating around my head right about now. And as always, I hope to see you all out there engaging in the war of ideas.